All right. Oh, you caught me putting my lip balm on. All right. Here we go. We are doing this a little different today because I want to try a new setup. So I need to go back to this other screen. All right. Oh, you caught me putting my lip balm on. All right. Here we go. I have to mute myself because otherwise I've got feedback coming in from a couple of different places and I needed to get all the things set up. We are live streaming today through Zoom so that I can talk to you over here and over here on this camera, right over here. Hello, hello, hello. I can do some demonstrations. So this is a new setup for me. So please bear with me as we work through this. Um, I always like to try new things. And if you've been around me long enough, you know that life is an experiment. It's an experiment with our stitching. It's an experiment with our technology all the time. Okay. So I'm Susie Quillen. I'm the Empress of Yarn here at Perfectly Naughty, and I'm so excited that you are here with me today. I will not be able to see any of your live chat right at the moment, but if you are watching live, please do say hello and chime in. I'll come back later and before we close out, check for any questions and see what we've got going on. All right. So here we are. I think this is Vest Project part number 9, video installation number 9, diary entry number 9, whatever we're calling it. I always feel a little unsettled about what I'm calling this series. It's part 9 of the series about this vest. And here's the great, awesome news. It's done. It's all knit. It's all bound off. And I'm really happy with it. I think it's really adorable. There we go. There it is. And I will have pictures of it on granddaughters next time I do an entry because I'll talk about that in a minute. So I'm really excited about it. I really love how it turned out. And of course, because this was the practice version, if you remember, right? Because I'm going to make this again for myself. And so there's some things I learned in here that we're going to talk about. So, okay, let's get started with kind of a recap on things that I have learned. So since this project is knit in reverse stockinette for the body, which means that the inside that's against the skin is the knit stitches, and the outside of the whole thing is your purl stitches. So reverse stockinette, which makes doing your increases and decreases along the side shaping show up a little bit differently. You can see here on the demonstration screen side of things, you can see that the lines here where the increases and the decreases are. Um, and once I wash this, even these areas that are just a little bit more raised, they will end up blocking in and they will hardly show at all. And then on the knit side, you see them in a very different way. And you can see these decreases over here. So if I can get this under the camera, that'll help. There you go. You can see the decreases over here and the increases up here. And so doing that, and you're making these increases and decreases on the purl side, not on the knit side, which is what we are most used to, right? And so that was the first thing when I cast on the first time for the real one. That was the first thing that I noticed was that I wasn't liking the way that I was doing, what the way that I was interpreting the instructions was turning out. And that's what prompted me to go ahead and pull it apart and start again and do this practice version. So, notes for you for projects, whether you are knitting or you are crocheting, these are some of the reasons why swatching is important, especially if you are making a garment. Okay. It's not just about getting the right stitch count and needing gauge, right? That's one part of it that is really important. But the other parts of it are you liking the way that increases or decreases or yarn overs if there's some lace going on, because there's some different ways to do yarn overs. Um, are those looking the way that you want them to look in your fabric? You get choices. You are customizing this project the way that you want to make it. So the more that you know and understand about how to do increases and decreases, yarn overs, shaping, binding, different ways to bind off, which we're going to talk about as well. The more that you know different ways to do that, the more empowered you are in choosing the version of that technique that needs to be done in a way that is creating a fabric that you like. Because some of those show up differently in our different yarns. If you're not using precisely the yarn and the gauge that the pattern was designed for, those techniques can show up in your fabric in ways that could be unexpected. So when you allow yourself to have a substantial swatch that includes the stitch pattern, that includes increases and decreases if they're part of the project, that includes casting on and binding off, this is going to help you create a garment that's even better. Okay, that's just how that is. And the more empowered you get to be to make the choices to do things the way that work better for you. I, for a long time, really was very limited in how to do increases and decreases in my knitting. And I've been expanding that. There are different techniques for it, where you're picking up the ladder row between, knitting into the mother stitch below the stitch you're on, knitting into the front and back. There's a bunch of different things. There's other ones too. Those are just the ones off the top of my head. And I needed to test out which ones were showing up in my fabric the way that I wanted them to show up because of my personal ergonomics, my personal gauge, my personal tension. All of those things impact. And so it's important to understand how your personal way of stitching impacts the stitches that the designer has mapped out, and know how to make some adjustments. So I really want you to feel empowered in your stitching to be able to do that. So let's talk about some stuff. This project starts with a provisional cast on. You cast on here, you knit, you, you make a turning row, and then you're joining the stitches over here. This one called for using a one size smaller needle on the inside. And you can see, I wonder if you can see, if the camera's going to let you see kind of what that does. I don't know that it's actually, it might, but that makes this a little bit smaller to the inside. And I didn't find in this project that that was making enough of an impact that I felt like I wanted to do it for my real project. So we'll talk about that in a little bit, but um, I didn't find that. So on my next one, I'm just going to do the whole thing in the same size needle. And similarly, with picking up the stitches and doing the border around the opening and also on the armholes. I just like that, having one size needle through the whole thing. There are applications absolutely where you definitely want to and can change your knitting needle size or your crochet hook size. There are some ways that you can do some shaping in some patterns without having to do increases and decreases by changing your hook or needle size in the middle. My lace wings tunic is an example of that. If you want waist shaping, you actually use a smaller knitting needle right here, and that's going to bring that in a little bit, and then you come back to the larger needle. This is very effective. It does then, especially with something that's all over pattern, you don't have to worry as much about making that transition as you're increasing and decreasing so you don't lose pattern. It doesn't work for everything. But I am going to give you permission to experiment in your knitting. Might try knitting a knit or crochet a scarf and go for a little while and then go down one size, go down one size, go down one size, then go up one size, go up one size, go up one size until you're back to where you started from, and see what that does, how that undulates your side seams. It's, and when you're doing that on purpose, you're making a choice versus doing that accidentally because you forgot what size hook or needle you were using. I want you to be able to do these things in choice. I want you to be empowered to do that and know that you can do that. Another thing that I experienced in this is that when I was picking up the stitches, I did not find that as much for the armhole openings for some reason, but on the longer opening for the whole front opening, you're picking up a lot of stitches. And one of the things that I found it more particularly when I started and went this end, and as I came around to the second side, I realized I was losing track of my straight line. Just because there was a lot of stitches on my big circular needle, and I just wasn't seeing where I needed to go. And when this, you're kind of going in a different direction. You're going up this side, right? And then you're coming down on this side. And so directionally, that changed my visibility a little bit. So what I'm going to be doing with the next project is that I am going to put in the second stitch in on the body, because this is reverse stockinette. I'm going to have one stitch that goes all the way around that is a knit stitch on the forward facing side and a purl stitch on the back side. So that way I know right where I need to stay and keep that lined up. I will also be doing that. So on these pockets that are made with short row shaping, and they are stockinette, and they're going to be, so I'm going to, in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm debating. I have to kind of plot this out a little bit more. I might make that second stitch in a purl bump instead of the knit stitch. So that way I know that that's the column that I am working in. And ultimately, you end up not really seeing it because those are the stitches that you're going into to pick up as you go, and it kind of gets pulled into the fabric of the edging. Because I noticed that right here at the top of this pocket where I got off track and I should have been picking up the stitch all the way over here. And I am, let me get a pointer here. Um, oh, where's my pointer? Where's my little teacher pointer that I made out of an old broken knitting needle? I should have been picking up along this column over here, through here and into the body of the sweater to join the pocket and the body together. But I, coming back down, going this way, I lost track of where that was. And I didn't line it up correctly. So these top, looks like top three or four stitches of this pocket aren't seamed correctly. So I'm going to end up having to take a little bit of yarn, come over here and duplicate stitch this in place so it is more secure and it's not pulling and gaping. Yeah, there was that little observation. The other observation that I made is that coming around the hood, I did not do as good of a job in my picking up stitches of keeping them evenly distributed. Again, there was a lot of bunching going on as they came around, um, as I came around the top of the hood, things were just bunching together and I wasn't counting correctly where to put the hook, and I was putting them a little bit too close together. And I didn't really realize that until I got a couple of rows in to knitting. And then it relaxed out a little bit and I could see better. And I was like, oh, I have too many stitches going on. So I had to do some decreasing across just, from about here to here across the hood a little bit. You can still see, you can see a little, still see a little bit of the waving from having too many stitches there. But because this was a practice one, I decided not to take it out and do it again because it's going to children who are going to love it and use it and wear it and are not going to be that concerned about it. They're probably not even really going to wear the hood. It just stays down all the time. So I just decided for this practice one, that was going to be fine. But mental note to be paying more attention to how I'm spacing those stitches, those picked up stitches. And I may go in and put stitch markers in key places along this line so that I know that I'm going to make up a number here. I need 25 stitches between here and here. And that is going to help a little bit as well. I would do that in my crochet. So why I didn't do that in my knitting in this application, probably mostly because I was getting excited to get finished and I wanted to press through and I wanted to get it done. And that is exciting, right? To be at the finish line and be wanting to get it done. But that's also where we can very easily make mistakes that are very avoidable. So take some time, plot some things out. All right. That Those were my big kind of takeaways here in the end. I'm going to pop over to the Facebook feed, see if anybody's here. I don't see anybody in here. Okay. We have some new features on the Facebook live feed. There's a top fan thing where you can kind of get on a leaderboard, which is really, really fun. You can, or under the video that you're watching, in the lower right-hand corner below the video, there was the three dots, right? That's that menu, right? And you, oh, nope, that's not it. That's not what it is. Oh, oh, it says two are watching now. I wonder if those two are me or if there's two other live people. Oh, here we go. Here it is. This is where I found it. Over here in the chat on the live feed with the chat, you can send emojis. You can send me an emoji. And YouTube has special different emojis. So that's kind of fun. I'm going to send myself an emoji. That's kind of fun. I've never done that before. But you can also, you can send me support. And when you do with a super sticker or a super chat, that is really amazing to me when you do that, or after when you're watching the replay, you can go in and there's a thanks button and you can send me if this video is helpful, if you like what I teach, if you like the way that I'm teaching, please consider supporting this channel with a couple dollars here and there. That helps me to continue doing what I do. So while um, because this is my job, and I'm providing you with free content. I teach you a lot of really good stuff, I think. Do you think I teach you good stuff? It helps me to know that you find the stuff I teach you helpful. When you comment, when you super chat, when you give thanks, all of that helps. All right, let's get them over here. While we're chatting for a minute, I am going to weave in some ends and I need to come back to where I can see. So I make sure that I am staying on camera with that. So I would love to hear from you. I would really love to hear from you. Okay, here we go. I'm using a darning needle. It's got a sharp point this time. Sometimes I use a dull point. Sometimes I use a sharp one. This is on that seam, but what I'm going to do, I wasn't super happy. I've got a little bit more gapping around here than I wanted. So I'm going to weave this one in a way that helps me to join this gap. So I'm going to come almost like doing a duplicate stitch. I'm going to go under this column of knitting right here, and I'm going to go under these two right here. And if it pierces through the yarn, so much the better for darning in, as long as that's not showing on the front side. All right, then we're going to come up, see if I can see it where it goes. Okay, now we're going to come up here, and I'm going to go under these two legs of the stitch in the next column. I can turn this. It's a little awkward the way I have things set up, so I apologize for that and appreciate your patience as I'm working with a whole new setup. And I probably won't do it the same way next time. Okay, there we go. And then it comes down this way and goes that way. Right there. Darning I'm doing this in a similar way that you would darn something. Darn it. I'm right up here and go that way. And just by doing that right there, that closed this gap right here that I was not happy with. Let's see, where's the next one? The next gap that I didn't like is over here. So we're going to continue kind of following that duplicate, kind of that darning type pattern over to there. See if I left myself enough of a tail to make that happen the way that I want. I always want to be really careful that when you're weaving in your ends, that you're not penetrating through to the public side of your work. Right, here's our next little gap. You also want to try to just follow the anatomy of where your stitches are going. I didn't quite get under it. There, land under. And because that is where the join is, it's not exactly a perfect stitch. So I'm kind of having to improvise just a wee bit. That's okay. And this is the inside anyway. So as long as there's no big hole there, it's going to work out. The next gap I have that I don't like is this one over here. So I'm going to just follow the lines of the stitches to get over there. I'm going to come up right here at the top of this one. If you have questions about things that you would like to see me teach about, you can go over to the website to perfectlyknotty.com, go to the contact page, and fill out the little form there. There's a little form you can fill out. And just ask a question. Just say, hey, can you teach on whatever the thing is? I'm going to do that one twice because that did not, because that was where the join was, it did not, the yarn I was pulling together wasn't following the same, wasn't tracking the same line, but now it's all closed in. That looks really good. I've got some more on this side, but I do have this other tail over here to weave in. So think about that too. When you are finishing or adding yarn at a new spot in your project, or you're adding yarn, another ball of yarn somewhere, pay attention to the flow of the path of yarn, the path that the stitches are making. The more that you understand about the architecture of your stitches, the more empowered you are to utilize things like weaving in your ends to help you correct an error, fill a gap, create a seam. Sometimes I will leave a really long length of tail at the front or the back of a piece so that I'm using that for the seam, up a side seam. So I might start at a bottom if I'm making something with a side seam. I might start at the bottom with whatever side length seam I'm going to need. And usually the length is 4 to 5 times this length. Not a guarantee. Don't quote me on that. Okay, because it also depends on your gauge. It depends on the type of stitch. It depends on the size of your yarn. But I will do that sometimes and just start with a tail that's really, really long so that I can use that yarn for the seaming instead of having to save more yarn to seam with later. All right, so I'm gonna just finish. I have just this little bit of yarn left, and I'm just going to split into the yarn here, just right into it. That's why I use this sharp needle this time. And I'm just gonna go through a few stitches, but in this case, I'm piercing the yarn and not going around it. That is going to help lock this last little bit of tail in. I'm going to then go back the other way, but I am going to go make sure that I can see where I came out. I'm going to get over that by a couple of strands and go back the other way. Now that is a really secure weave in. And I closed this gap, these 2 or 3 gaps that I had going here. When I weave in this tail, I'm going to close in these gaps that are on this side. There's 3 of them over here that I just don't like the way that seamed. And so I also made note of that. So when I get to the place where I'm doing the shoulder seams on the next one. I'm gonna do them just a little bit different, just to make sure. I'm also going to make sure that at the shoulders, before I seam them and make it final and official, that I've put a lifeline in, so that way, if what I think is going to work better doesn't work better, it's not a big deal to be able to just pull it out and back it up and do it again. Stitching mileage. This is not a race. If you are racing, if you're in a hurry, if you've given yourself a deadline, and that does happen sometimes, and there's nothing overtly wrong with that. But I really want you to experience your knitting and your crochet as a journey, as a process, as an experience. And part of that is taking things out sometimes. It's just part of the process. And then you get stitching mileage. You get to use that yarn some more. And if you picked out that yarn because you love it and it's beautiful, you love the color, or maybe you love the feel, or all of the above, or you're liking the way that the flow of the stitch pad, the stitch repeats, even if you didn't mess up and you didn't get it quite right in my spot. It's all part of the process. It's part of the journey. It's part of the exploration. And I want you to feel comfortable in making mistakes. Because here's the thing, is that learning only comes by making mistakes. And perfection is absolutely not a destination. It is a process. You cannot achieve perfection the first go around, or the third, or the fourth. You have to do the reps. You can't skip from the beginning to the end. And I don't want you to compare where you are now in your knitting or crochet with where I am now. I have been doing this for over 50 years now. 50 years, 50 people, 5 decades. That's a long, long time. And I have only been really focusing in and honing in on consistent skill building and consistent technique improvement for the last 20 years. So that's a long time too. And I'm still learning. I still learn something every project. I've learned things here. So there you have it. Head on over to perfectlyknotty.com to sign up for the newsletter so you get all of the updates, all the fun stuff. Make sure here on the YouTube channel that you click subscribe, click the notification bell. Again, I love it. It means so much to me when you click that thanks button. Buys me a cup of coffee because, I haven't taken a slurp yet, but coffee is life. Helps to quiet my ADHD brain. So again, thank you so much for being here. Thanks for watching. Thanks for watching this whole series. If you have, if you haven't, you can go into the playlist. I'll put a link for it down in the description. It's not there yet, but I have to come back in because I'm doing this from a different platform. All of that information gets added after the fact. So I'll have to come back in later and do that. There you go. I'm going to take one more peek over here to make sure I didn't miss anybody's questions or anything. No, apparently I'm the only one here today. So hopefully you watch this on the replay. That would be awesome. And oh, it says 5 that you are watching now. Well, that's exciting. And maybe you're commenting and maybe I'm not seeing the comments. I don't know. I don't know because sometimes, let me see what this says. Oh, it says it's open. Okay, well, guys, it says the live chat's open, so I don't know. I don't know how all of these technology things actually work. And sometimes what happens is I think I get it figured out and they update something. So I just keep trying. Just like with knitting and crochet, right? I just keep trying. And that's what I want you to do. Keep trying, keep playing, keep exploring. All right. Mwah. I love you. Subscribe to this channel. Subscribe to the newsletter over at the website. I have things that I only share on in the newsletter. Um, Special deals sometimes, special workshops that are coming up, special programs that I only share about in email. So, okay, guys, love you so much. I'm going to end this meeting now on Zoom. I'll see you somewhere around the internet, I hope. And I'll talk to you soon. Thank you. Don't forget, it's Susie Quillen, Perfectly Naughty, Empress of Yarn. Subscribe, like, comment, all the things. You know what to do. Why am I telling